The man who ate worms. Will you survive a bee sting on your private parts? How to remove your appendix by yourself? Who saved the world from coronavirus? All this and other joys of science in today's BrainFrame episode. The path of scientific discoveries is thorny and traumatic. History knows many doctors who had fallen ill while fulfilling their duty. But there were those who deliberately infected or harmed themselves in order to test a hypothesis by experiment. It is these selfless people that we will tell you about today. Before we begin, hide all the knives in the house, close the windows, and pull the bell under the video. They say infections are afraid of ringing. Let's go! Number 5. Albert Hofmann. In 1938, Albert Hofmann was a common research chemist in the Sandoz laboratories dedicated to identifying and synthesizing active compounds from medicinal plants. Hofmann was just working with an alkaloid from an ergot fungus, which was later called lysergic acid. While some of these alkaloids had medicinal properties, they often had unwanted and sometimes serious side effects. Hofmann was tasked with producing new lysergic acid compounds that would have no side effects. At the same time, he wanted to get compounds that could heal and save people, and made drugs as a result. LSD. LSD, one of the most powerful mind and perception-modifying drugs. LSD effects last for approximately 12 hours. LSD peaked in the hippie 1960s. Jim Morrison can confirm. It's funny that Hofmann didn't come across LSD by accident. He synthesized it because he thought the product would act as a stimulant for blood circulation and respiration. He believed that its chemical structure was similar to niacin diethylamide, a known stimulant at the time. But unfortunately, the product that was produced did not interest any of the scientists. Only 5 years later, Hofmann resurrected LSD because of a certain feeling he had. Divine providence, not otherwise. He felt that LSD might have properties that were different from those found in the initial testing, and his feelings did not deceive him. April 16, 1943 is the day Hofmann first took LSD. By chance, of course, 20 milligrams of the substance seeped through gloves onto the scientist's skin, and the great mind trembled under the onslaught of a new drug. 3 days later, on April 19, 1943, Hofmann had deliberately taken 250 milligrams of LSD. In wartime, it was impossible to move around the city by car, so the stoned scientist got on a bicycle and drove home. Later, he described this trip as a not unpleasant intoxicated-like condition. I perceived an uninterrupted stream of fantastic pictures, extraordinary shapes with intense kaleidoscopic play of colors. Since then, April 19th has become entrenched in the minds of people as Bicycle Day. At the time, Hofmann did not even understand what he created, but for the courage to swallow all kinds of nasty drugs, the stoned chemist rests on the 5th place. Number 4. Evan O'Neill Kane. So the next hero of the strange experiments is Evan O'Neill Kane, a surgeon from Pennsylvania who tested his surgical skills on himself 3 times. His history of self-surgery began in 1919, when he amputated one of his fingers, presumably to prevent the spread of infection. And already in 1921, at the age of 60, when Dr. Kane became famous for being the first person to have his own appendix removed. Appendix. An unnecessary gut piece, a rudiment of evolution. The largest appendicitis in the world, 25 centimeters. Cats and dogs have no appendix. Neither do I. Why did he do this crazy trick? According to newspapers of the time, the first reason was to imbue some confidence into patients who had doubts before surgery. But his other reasons are much more important. Having performed over 4,000 appendectomies, at one point Kane decided it was time to take a new approach. He believed that the operation could very well be performed using local rather than general anesthesia, and all the potential risks that it carried then, such as heart problems. The daredevil doctor believed that ether, the way-to-go general anesthesia at the time, was used too much and too often. He also promoted the use of Novocaine as a safer replacement for the dangerous and addictive cocaine that prevailed back in the days. Performing a self-surgery while high on cocaine. Restless Kane did not stop at one operation. In 1932, at the age of 70, he operated on himself again at the Kane Summit Hospital, this time cutting out an inguinal hernia caused by a horse riding accident. This time, the media tried not to lose a good story and even invited a photographer to capture the procedure. Although the operation carried more risks than the previous one, Kane did a good job again. After 36 hours, he got to his feet again and went to operate on other patients. Evan O'Neill Kane left a tremendous legacy in medical science. Over the course of his career as a surgeon, Dr. Kane introduced or proposed a number of innovations, including asbestos dressings and multiple hypodermoclases, whatever that may be. He was even one of the first to experience music therapy, playing music on a phonograph before anesthetizing his patients to help them relax and sleep. This is where mumble rap can help these days. Number 3. Michael Smith. Look carefully. This is the face of the hero. Captain America's been frozen for 70 years? Bull crap. Batman got his parents killed in front of him? Oh, poor Batsy. Check this out. Michael Smith deliberately allowed the bees to bite his body, including family jewels. It all started when Michael was actually stung by a bee in one of the worst places where you can sting a person, in the testicle. Exhale. Let's continue. Most men would be traumatized for life by this experience, but Michael isn't most men. Instead of getting angry and crying, although he probably did cry, he decided to answer the question that has haunted scientists for centuries. What is the most painful place to be stung by a bee? Bee. Flying insects, relatives of wasps and ants. There are 21,000 species of bees. The bees living on the roof of Notre Dame survived the fire. Bees have 5 eyes, and they're all looking at you, Michael. To our great regret, experiments on humans are prohibited. Therefore, Michael did not have time to deal with the legal side of the issue, and as befits a researcher, he did everything himself. A guinea pig Michael. After all he needed was a few bees. Easy. Michael designed the experiment with 25 points all over his body. The experiment was so carefully designed that Michael actually received about 5 bites a day for 3 months before the experiment to prepare the immune system for the coming overload. And by the way, we have a gorgeous video about how the immune system works and how it can be dangerous to us. Wash your hands and click the pop-up. Michael had prepared so thoroughly that he even intended to let the bees sting him in the eye. How do you like that, Johnny Knoxville? Thank goodness the doctors did not allow that. After Michael was stung by bees for 38 days in areas such as his penis, testicles, nipples, ears, nose, and other sensitive and not very sensitive areas, the results came out as follows. 3 least painful spots: skull, tip of middle finger, and forearm. 3 most painful spots: nostrils, upper lip, and penis. It would seem that Michael could be a sadomasochist and just enjoy the pain. According to his own words, there's definitely no crossing of wires of pleasure and pain down there. It's painful, and for some reason, we believe him. Number 2. Fedor Talyzin. What could be cooler than being stung by a bee in the genitals? We don't even know. Well, for example, to swallow a couple of beef tapeworm larvae and let them grow inside you. Beef tapeworm. a species of parasitic tapeworms. Lives in the small intestine of cattle, sometimes human. The length of an adult worm is from 4 to 10 meters. Can live in a person for 20 years. They have suckers. This is exactly what the Soviet scientist parasitologist Fedor Talyzin did in the late 1940s. The doctor decided to infect himself in order to find out what the development cycle of the parasite is and how it can be diagnosed. The frenzied Russian experimenter had to endure many unpleasant moments. You bet! Talyzin swallowed 2 beef tapeworm larvae and carried the parasite in him for 122 days. For most of this period, the doctor experienced nausea and upset stomach. Now remove children and sensitive animals from the screen. We're not kidding. Ready? And give this video a like while we're at it. Or put a dislike. You very well may be a sensitive animal. So, when the worms reached the adult stage, the lower segments of their body began to break off, and acquiring the ability to crawl on their own, the worms got out of Talyzin's intestines. Finally, after the doctor took a drug that kills the tapeworm, it turned out that 2 worms with a total length of 9 meters 80 centimeters lived in his intestines. Number 1. Carlo Urbani. And who is in our first place? We decided to move away from useful but slightly insane scientists and give the first place to a real hero. Carlo Urbani was the first to realize that the epidemic of severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, in 2003 marked a new, not previously encountered life-threatening infection. SARS, respiratory viral disease caused by the SARS-CoV coronavirus. Known under the pseudonym atypical pneumonia, infected 8,089 people, killed 774 people, was defeated in 2003. Its brother came to take revenge in 2020. The first known mention of the SARS epidemic dates back to February 2003, when the Chinese Ministry of Health announced a mysterious outbreak of SARS in southern China's Guangdong province. The country's authorities reported a total of 305 cases, including 5 deaths in the previous 3 months. However, these numbers almost certainly underestimated the scale of the Chinese epidemic. It is believed that a Chinese doctor who treated patients with SARS in Guangdong province brought the disease to Hong Kong that February. During his brief stay in the city, he somehow infected at least 10 people. These infected people subsequently boarded planes that took them to Singapore, Vietnam, Canada, and the United States, spreading an epidemic that lasted more than 100 days. In total, 29 countries and thousands of people were affected. On February 28, 2003, a Vietnamese-French hospital in Hanoi approached the Hanoi branch of the World Health Organization with a patient, an American businessman, who was showing signs of an unusually severe flu. Carlo Urbani, a specialist in infectious diseases who worked at the clinic, quickly determined that this was not the flu, but something unusual, a new, previously unknown infection of the respiratory tract. Moreover, and crucially, Urbani immediately notified WHO of his findings, thereby immediately setting in motion the most effective global response to a major epidemic in history. His decisive and timely action saved millions of lives around the world. Despite the danger of illness, Urbani spent the next few days at a French-Vietnamese hospital in Hanoi, where he organized infection control procedures and took patient samples for analysis. And when it became clear that the infection was highly contagious and deadly, Urbani worked closely with the hospital staff to maintain morale. Moreover, Urbani, like other hospital staff, decided not to leave the hospital so as not to put their families and society at risk. These people have deliberately put themselves at risk for us. Unfortunately, Urbani began to show symptoms of SARS during a flight from Hanoi to Bangkok on March 11th, where he planned to attend a conference. He died in a Bangkok hospital on March 29, 2003, unaware that for several weeks, researchers working around the world would isolate the SARS agent sequence its genome and identify it as a newly discovered coronavirus. Several days before his illness, Dr. Urbani argued with his wife. She was worried that he was working with patients with such a deadly disease, to which he replied, "If I can't work in such situations, what am I here for? Answering emails, going to cocktail parties, and pushing paper?" At the time of his death, Carlo Urbani was 49 years old. That's all for today. Even though we didn't end on the most cheerful note, you shouldn't be discouraged. Remember the main thing: scientists, doctors, researchers who may seem insane to us conduct these sometimes terrible and sometimes funny experiments, not in order to amuse their own ego, but in order to push science forward and find new ways to save lives. And if they are called insane for this, then we fully support this type of insanity. Meanwhile, hang in there. BrainFrame out.